Well, we don't have to.
Good morning. Welcome to the Ascended World podcast. And this is on Christmas Eve morning. This is Angela Coulter. And
There's the Avignon.
so go ahead where you wanted to start.
And looking at the self-actualization and doing research on it, and because it's the only thing that that describes what I do and the goals for myself and the goals for clients and what I teach, is, I started researching it after I finally found the definition. And it was Maslow, I believe is his name, who came up with this, that said once you reach certain goals, once you reach, meet the basic needs of food, clothing, shelter, then you move on to love and acceptance, and then you move on to growth. Only then can you become self-actualized, which means that you've reached your full potential. And I just look at that, and I'm trying to come up with a visual interpretation of the way I see it, is that, that's the problem with where we are. No one ever gets to the self-actualization because everybody's caught up in the TV ads telling you you're not good enough, the economy telling you you're not good enough, churches telling you you're not good enough. So, that's...
And even in the spiritual community, you see how many memes out there. There's about like, I'm just imperfect and I'm just not perfect. And it's like, no, that's a completely opposite for what is real, the real understanding, which is we are perfect.
Right.
And that everything we do is perfect because it feeds into what it is we're here to learn and create and, experience and whatever based on our plans. So.
Well, and if you look at it from the perspective of all those things that come from a place of need, the majority of it are egoic.
Yeah. Need has to do with
exactly.
lack, right? Need has to do with the perception of lack, right? And perception of lack is from separation, which is ego. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So you think, okay, well, if it were, if I had my magic wand, then I wouldn't need food, clothing, shelter, blah, 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 blah. But if you weren't so narrow-minded about that and looked at it from the perspective of, if I have that self-actualization already, then I'm able to attract those things without them having to be my focus.
Well, and the thing is also attracting them without the expectations around it, because so what is the basic necessities of living, right? Like, is it a $2 million house, or is it just a place that's, big enough and comfortable so that you can sleep at night? Trailer, or what do they call those? The mini houses now, which I think is awesome.
The tiny house, yeah.
Yeah, right. The tiny house. Or a tent. I mean, there's so many people. Like, I know somebody it was really funny because I remember her having this, and it's a great example. Somebody who lives in a very abundant lifestyle, right? Whose son at the age of 16 was like, screw this, I'm leaving. And she was like, what? And it wasn't like they had problems or anything. I mean, she was very loving and they had a good family life and everything. And he just literally went and found a group of people and backpacked the Adirondacks.
Right.
Until he was like 18. And she was like all freaking out. Well, he dropped out of school. School was never really good for him, but I still worry. And is he going to be able to do this? Well, here's the thing, because we have built these expectations when you can only have the basic needs met if it looks like this.
Right.
And it's like, well, if I can keep my house, or if I could keep my whole walk-in closet full of clothes, or I could, keep my $40,000 car, but it's like everybody, if you ask 10 people what that basic amount is, it's going to be completely different based on their experience. But the thing that's really cool about her son was she was so worried about him. And I did a bunch of sessions with her about, acceptance and, like trusting his journey and, honoring if that's what his heart is telling him to do, then to do it. So, fast forward, I think it's like 4 years ago now, maybe. Well, he's he met somebody, fell in love with them, like doing this. I think he was out there in the Adirondacks for like 2 years,
Right.
right? And I mean, I think he's like 20 or 21 now, and he just had like a baby, and he's with this woman, and they're like having this really awesome free life. They're very happy, apparently. Very happy.
Right.
And do they have a lot? Do they have the, $40,000 house and the $600,000, dollar home? No, they don't.
Right.
And they don't even need it. So that's part of it too, is because we think, okay, oh yeah, we talk about that. We need these basic needs met. Well, what are the needs are based on ego, right? On egoic perception.
Right.
And it's like, we could really live on almost nothing in terms of money. We could.
Well, I mean, and
That's the whole Buddhist thing of letting go of all your worldly possessions and stuff.
right. Right.
Because it lets go of the attachment.
Right.
Because we're so attached to what that house brings us, or like what we believe that house brings us in terms of valuing ourselves. What the kinds of clothes we're wearing, what the, car we're driving. It's interesting because I even realized that coming out of my mouth, even like, I don't know, sometime in the past couple of weeks, I was talking to my daughter who has my hand-me-down Highlander, right, which is a 2003, which I bought off the lot, brand new, back then, 2002. So it's 16 years old. It's got 200,000 miles on it. And we were talking about, blah, blah, blah. And she's looking for a full-time job right now since she graduated college. And I said, so, like, then you could get a car, whatever. And she's like, why? She's like, I love Indy is what we call her. That's her name. So she's like, I love her. She's like the best. I don't want another car. She works fine. There's nothing wrong with her, Right. And I'm like, and then I was like, no, you're right. Like, because we think right away, what does that mean? Oh, I'm making money. I get a new car. Like, it's like, but if the car that you have works fine, then drive it. Like,
right.
It's like,
right. Well, and I try to bring everything back to, does something really bring me joy and love? I know my husband's car is, we're trying to make a decision about repairing it. And I was like, okay, let's not let money limit us. If you had all the money in the world, what would you do? Well, of course I would not repair it because it's got almost 300,000 miles on it. And the repair's around $6,000. And it's like, okay, but if that car really brought you that joy, then maybe you should repair it. But if you're only not doing it because of the money, then you need to look somewhere else.
Right.
So it's getting to that place to where you're not held hostage by the economy or society, and you live from that place of freedom and what brings you joy and bliss, because that is what self-actualization is.
Well, it is. And it's interesting because I've been looking at that going, it is a habit to worry about money.
Right. Everywhere you look, that's all they talk about.
Especially during the holidays, right?
Yeah.
And I've been walking through the holidays this year, and I have no worries. Like, and it's really funny because it's like, oh, okay. I get this or I get that, and I think about like, well, I've gone through this system over the years of really cutting down on just really focusing on my immediate family as those who, I spend time with, who, I get gifts for or whatever. And I'm just like, this year we didn't even, like, this year we did do Christmas cards, but we only did like 20 of them, which were to the most immediate family of the people that we get cards from all the time, or we, like, that's how we connect with them. And that was fine. But it's like so much less stress. And I've been observing that I have so much less stress during the holidays than I used to.
Well, and we didn't want it this year.
What was that?
We aren't giving gifts this year. We don't have the money.
Yeah.
So we're not participating. And it's almost like, because I haven't been out shopping, I've been dropping my daughter at work, and it's like, it's like, wow, I'm glad I haven't been in this. because it's
Yeah.
intense.
Well, I remember, I think it was probably 2 or 3 years ago, I noticed that even though things would flow during the holiday season, I would get stressed anyway as a
Right.
habit, right?
Well, and you just look around at all the expectations, and if you watch TV, it's like brainwashing bombardment.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just, ugh.
And I think if there are years where it was really tough. Uh, anyway, and I'm like, and I did like commit a couple of years ago to just shifting the energy to allowing the love and the flow and the enjoyment of the season over everything else, right?
Right, which I think led me to my little bit of funk today is that if that's what you focus on and you're looking at that, it's like, wow, look at how I've fallen short of what I really wanted.
Yeah.
And it's easy to go, well, it's because we don't have any money this year. Well, no, because that's not at all what I was after. It's that family time, and it's like everybody's so busy. Everybody's so self-focused on what they're doing that coming together just doesn't really happen unless somebody orchestrates it. It's just not natural.
Well, it's like what was it 2 weeks ago, a week ago? It was a week ago. I can't tell time anymore. Yeah, because last week we did this on Tuesday, which threw off my entire week.
Right.
So like last week where I took the day and we just did like, and that's what we started doing this like 5 years ago, where my mother, my kids, my husband and I all just do baking cookies for the day, right? So the end result is, we end up doing all these, like I pick cookies that not a lot of people do so that it's a good variety and that's like what we gift people with, because by the way, we make it with love, right?
Right.
And I always sit there and like in the beginning of it, I'm like, oh my God. Like I always think in the beginning I start going, oh my God, this is gonna be so much. But then once we get into the groove of it, we have so much fun. We really enjoy doing it together and whatever. And it was funny because I gave cookies to Yasmin when I saw her last week, our friend Yasmin. And it was funny because she was like, oh, I have to have one while we're here because we're having lunch. And then she goes, I could feel your hands making these cookies. She goes, I can feel the love that goes into it. That is how it changes the quality of what you're receiving, whether it's a gift or food or, cookies or whatever. And to me, that's much more the holidays than anything else.
Well, and it's one of those things where the gift is given and it's received, and you keep that feeling. It's not like, now what do I do with it? What do I do with this thing that sits around? Or what do I do with this? Or, because nobody needs more things that sit around.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what I have said. That has been like become the baseline decision on whether we do a gift for somebody or not, is if you want to get them something that's just going to sit around because you don't know them well enough to get them something that's going to be really heartfelt,
right?
Then don't do it. Just don't do it.
Right. Well, my sister had to go to a housewarming party, and I was like, something consumable, because it's a housewarming party. Is it their first house? Well, that'd be different. No, this is like their fifth house. They probably don't want what they have, much less more. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was even like, and I've told you about this offline before, but our my oldest, her boyfriend's family, they always end up coming over Christmas Day night. They live 5 minutes away. So they always come over Christmas Day night to, give Brianna a small gift and whatever. And I guess over the years, it's just become they hang out for a couple hours and we do a game or something. But like a couple years ago, we started bringing like a little gift. And I was just like, why? I don't have any connection with them. Besides, I see them for Christmas Day night because of Brianna. Honestly, in passing, maybe a couple times a year, and that's it. We have really very little in common, and I like them fine. But I mean, if I have to choose who I'm going to give a gift to, it's somebody I'm much more closely aligned with and connected with and whatever. So it's funny because I found myself almost getting back to the habit of, oh, well, what could I get them? Just a little something. And then I was like, nope. There was a voice that was like, no way, no, you're not going back there. And I was like, hey, no, we'll give them a tin of cookies. That's it.
Yeah.
Which, is a heartfelt, like I said, handmade thing.
Well, I know, like for my nephew, I did a drawing, and that's like, part of it was for me because I needed to pull myself back into myself through all those. And that's one of the ways that works best for me. And I felt that he would appreciate it. And I mean, I probably spent, 10 to 15 hours on it. Which, what other gift do I do that with? I mean, that's probably the most time I spent on a gift for somebody in a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, I did that with my in-laws gifts this year.
Yeah.
And this was a discussion that my husband and I had because I said, we haven't been sending his parents a gift for like probably 5 years, and they always send us something, and they're his parents, right? And I guess sort of been a better connection in the past year. So I said to him, we should get something for, why don't we get something? Not we should, why don't we get something for your parents this year? And but then here's the thing, he talks to his parents probably 3 times a year.
Yeah.
And they live in this small town in western Minnesota, there's not a big variety of things to do, like even some of our friends we'll get like this, like a little like outing gift or something, like a Groupon thing or something like that. It's like $20. I'm like, so we were struggling to like come up with, like, the idea that I had would be perfect, except they didn't have what they needed to have to get them this gift, right? Because I wanted to get them an Echo. I said it'd be cool to get the Amazon Echo or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But they don't have Prime. And I was like, well, that sort of blows it up. I'm not going to get them a gift that requires them to pay more money. So we're like, okay, what do we get them?
That's like getting somebody tires for their car that they don't have.
Exactly. Here's some tires for this Mercedes. Go get one now.
Yeah. Hope you enjoy it.
So we were going through that whole thing of like, okay, and we did actually, reach out to like my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, and we even like talked to my mother-in-law for her birthday earlier this month, and we were like really, and they're not any help either because they just don't have a lot of it. That's just the way. I mean, they're just very simple, which is fine, but it's a challenge. So finally, we're looking at all the stuff, and we're like looking at baskets, and we're looking at Omaha steaks, and then I'm like, well, like, I don't know, is your mom even going to cook it? Because she's by herself, shit, you do that, like all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Finally, I said, you know what? I am not doing this because here we are struggling again on a gift that is just to have a gift. And I said, so what I ended up doing, speaking of, because this made me think of that when you were talking about the thing for your nephew, is we did this like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. But we haven't done it for at least that long. I did a photo calendar. I made a photo calendar of the family.
Right. Yeah.
And it took me like 4 hours to pull those together because I had to pull the pictures together, go through all the pictures, create something for each month. And then it was like, and then of course I can't just leave things. So then I put like a quote in each month that's sort of related to what's going on in the pictures, like an inspirational quote.
Really personalizes it.
Yeah. So I ended up spending probably 4, maybe even 5 hours putting those pictures together, and before I, send them over to Walgreens to upload. And by the way, I will say, the quality of how they do that now is so much better than it used to be. Because I was like, oh my God, when it came back, I was like, this is gorgeous. And it was $20.
Yeah.
You know, but it was heartfelt. You know what I'm saying? It was very personal. And because, and to me, it's a good gift because it's some, like his parents who don't get to see the grandkids here very, you know, very much. They don't get to see us very much. So it keeps us like connected without us, you know, talking all the time and stuff. So I thought that was really sort of cool, a cool idea. But those kind of things are so much more like, and like you're talking, like, so your nephew has something that you created,
right?
That nobody else could have. That's nobody else is going to have.
Right.
That's
right.
It means so much more when it means something to the person, like as you're creating it. That's how I look at it. So, what were we talking about? We got off on the whole Christmas thing.
I think we were talking about the human needs and
right, the expectations around them.
Right, and even if you look at the human need of love, it's like, you know, if you attract such a different kind of love if you aren't coming from that place of desperation and lack and emptiness and you need to make me feel better and I need fulfillment externally. I mean, the quality, that quality feels like it's judgment, but it's like the match, the vibrational match you get when you come from that place of authenticity and actualization versus, you know, still seeking those basic human needs.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a different pairing.
Well, and I would say that I have been observing my own stuff too this holiday season, and I realize that that's sort of, once we let go of the habits of obligation, right, we leave ourselves so much more energy to be, you know, authentic.
Right.
Because we're not authentic when we're doing stuff out of obligation. We're doing it because we're obligated to do it.
Right. And we're taught that.
Or expected to do it, right?
And what is it that in the Four Agreements, we're domesticated.
Mm-hmm.
We are entrained into something to give the appearance of appropriateness that is so inappropriate.
Right. Right. And again, ask 10 people what appropriate is, and you'll get 10 different answers.
That's exactly right.
Right.
That's exactly right.
So, but I did notice that this year, like, because at first I was like, well, I'm just not connected to this at all. But then I realized I was connected to it, but just in a very different way. The whole holiday season, it was just in a very different way.
Right.
So simpler, so much simpler, so much. So much more space of allowance, of saying, okay, I'm just going to let this be. And those who I'm supposed to be, you know, here with or together with will get together. And if we, right. And, you know, I'm not going to, and it's not that I don't, like, I realize there's a lot of stuff I've been very cognizant of this year during the holiday season, which is I've noticed that people will react to me instead of acting from their heart. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So because I do something, somebody will do something in return. Well, that's obligation. Or you feel like, you know,
you're living in reaction instead of proaction.
Yeah.
You're just being. And
we don't even realize how much habit that is. And it's like, well, like for example, because we never get our Christmas cards out when we even do send them until like literally the week of Christmas, which is again what we did. I think we sent out our cards on Friday. Friday afternoon. And so, you know, what'll happen is people who we haven't gotten cards from that were like of those 20 that we sent out,
Right.
we'll get cards from them next week.
Right. Absolutely.
And to me, that's completely unfulfilling. Because to me, I'm like, okay, who does
You
it?
weren't going to send me one unless I sent you one.
Yeah, so why do we do it then? And if we are doing something from the heart, we don't do it with expectations. We do it just to do it from the heart.
Exactly.
And it's like, I'm not doing it so that you'll send me a card. I'm not doing it.
This is not a request for a card.
Right. I'm sending you a Christmas card, so I have more Christmas cards on my mantle. So, I mean, we laugh, but that's what people do, right?
Oh, well, I just save mine every year and put them all back out, and then it just doesn't matter.
Well, we did, it's like what we used to do. I was telling my daughter this. We used to spend thousands of dollars on presents at Christmas time because between Scott and I, we have like 10 nieces and nephews alone, right?
Yep.
And now some of them have, if we were doing that now, and now some of them have kids and spouses and all that kind of stuff. I mean, oh my God, if we were trying to do that now. And it's not that I don't love them. I do.
Right.
It doesn't mean that I don't love them because I don't send a present, and at some point you realize people that you're only talking to, or you're just sort of in your peripheral, like parts of your life, if you have to say, I have to get a gift for my niece. Like, it was funny because Brianna, who works at Barnes and Noble part-time, was like, she's like, it's funny is when somebody came up to her and was like, so I have to get a present for my niece who's, I don't remember how old, like say 12, right? And I've only seen her like once or twice in the past year or two. So I don't know what to get her. What should I get her? Brianna's like, well, I now know as much as you do. So
right. Crazy. That's crazy.
And then I'm like, so then here's the gift. Connect with that person more so that you know them. And then it becomes natural if you want to get them a gift. Then it's natural.
Right.
Like, I hardly ever think about what to get people. If I have to think about it, then it's too much energy. Right.
Right.
And the other thing that I've just come to is if I feel like getting something, if I feel from the heart like getting something for somebody or giving something to somebody, I do it any time of the year.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's just like, I always had the problem with the Hallmark holidays. It's like, why do I only want my children to let me know that they care about me on Mother's Day?
Yeah. And so, yes, it's great to have celebrations. It's great to have a Mother's Day to celebrate that, right? But that shouldn't be the only day that mothers are honored, right? Or fathers are honored on Father's Day.
Exactly. Or grandparents, or
and it's like if we can take the time over the holiday season, no matter what you celebrate at the end of the year, if we can take the time to love each other, remember how to openly love each other, why can't we do it all the time?
Right. And then just have this be a culmination of celebration, not just like, oh my God, I have to do a year's worth of catch up on that.
Right.
or it's like, people go to church Christmas and Easter.
Right. I mean, and I understand, like, we do all have full lives and stuff. And so I do enjoy getting, like, there are people, like, even in the family that they do those holiday letters every year. And I actually enjoy them because it's a way to catch up, even though we're all like doing something else all the time,
Right. It's funny. I used to do those, and then I got divorced. My ex-husband took the address book. And it was one of those things where it was like, I tried to send Christmas cards the first year, and it was very much like, oh yeah, we already heard that in his letter. And it's like, okay, so I don't need to do that anymore. I didn't, and I don't.
Yeah, I did them for a couple of years when the kids were younger. And then I was just like, honestly, so much happens in a week now that I don't even know how I would do a letter today. But
well, and I'm not sure I could remember everything that's happened, especially this past year. It's just been, and it's not sure I want to remember a lot of it.
well,
Ready
yeah.
for that to be
And
done.
again, though, it does sort of say a testament to then why don't we just stay in touch with each other for the rest of the year?
Right.
And it's not that we don't care. That's where social media has helped, but it's also been a hindrance too. It's almost made people lazier because then it's like, oh, they'll just find it on Facebook, right?
Right. Well, and I don't know. I've found that I've been taking a lot of breaks from social media just because it's like all the stuff. It's like everybody's putting the check in the box of all the stuff that they're doing. Just hasn't worked for me this year.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think there's good and bad too. There's pros and cons.
Right. Right.
So,
well, it depends on how it's used, which
yeah.
is everything actually.
Exactly. Oh my God. So I think part of it comes from, again, it still comes from that external need for validation from other people, right?
Right.
It's like, oh, well, if I don't get them a gift that's $100 gift, they're just gonna. What I love is when I see catalogs that they're like, here's the gift page, or even if you go to Amazon, here's gift suggestions, and you go like down things that's like $600, $700, you're like, who gets people a $700 gift for Christmas?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, have I missed something?
I know. Yeah, even spouses. I don't think I don't even remember what's the most I've ever spent on a gift. But it certainly wasn't that.
Well, we always, every year, my husband and I will be like, okay, so what's our budget? We agree on what our budget is for Christmas.
Right.
To keep it in a reasonable range, because we've had years where, it's $50,
Yeah.
Whatever. But yeah, it's still like, it's really important for us to peel back all these layers to look at our motivations for all of it.
Right. Well, and then, okay, so I've done all that and I find myself in just a really icky place. And it's like, so I think there's a balance to peeling back the layers and exposing all this, manipulation or mismotivations. So what's it replaced with?
Well, and that's where it feels empty, right? Because
exactly,
you're not used to that space.
Right.
So, and that's what I had been looking at, because I'm like going, well, I'm only going, like I'm going I'm going where and to see who I'm guided, that feels authentic.
It also feels very lonely.
It does sometimes, but then I realize, but it gives me the space to really think about how many people like how much are we attached to, oh, I'm just so busy I can't even breathe, like during the holidays especially. Oh, I just have too many things on my plate. I don't know how I'm ever going to get it done or whatever. And I'm just like, hey, you know what? I have it finally managed to a place where it's smooth and it's fun. And I take some time out to do stuff I don't usually do, but then it's still not like killing me. Like, but then also I don't overstress about things that I don't get done either anymore,
Right.
It was like the whole like getting cards out, and I was just like, oh, well, we had a really nice picture for Thanksgiving. And because I was in picture mode doing those calendars, I was like, well, we could just do those up for, for the holiday photo,
Right.
And so I do things so much more, it's smoother, but yes. And there are times it's like, oh, well, right. Is there something wrong because I'm not hustling and bustling? Right.
Well, and I feel so disconnected because I'm not doing what everybody else is doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I'm mostly over that. I'm mostly over that because actually I just know a lot of people, I guess because of the circle of people that I'm
right
in, many of us are doing the same thing. So it's actually really nice and refreshing because it's just sort of like, we'll talk about, oh, well, this is really, nice. I was talking to our friend Yasmin that I was referring to before. She's has shifted a lot of things on how she's reacted to certain things that have come up over the holidays this year because of her changes in her life. And she's like, much better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the holidays are a great time for us to test our authenticity. Absolutely.
Right.
Because people expect things of you that they don't expect otherwise, that sometimes are crazy outrageous,
Right. And I think that the society, television, whatever those societal forces that you want to look at, build this expectation that it almost seems to come out of nowhere, whether it's out of a movie and it's like, then you've got everybody's expectations that needs to be met. And it's like, I didn't sign up for that. Who's the mysterious person that's supposed to make all that happen?
Yeah.
And it's just simply expectation.
And what I love is, again, I think we mentioned her last week, but I'm going to mention her again this week, Andrea, from Peru, Andrea.
Oh, yeah.
Rosenwitz, I think that's how you pronounce her last name.
Yeah.
And just her whole Advent, pay it forward commitment and everything. And I think, well, if it's a season of truly remembering love and a gratitude and whatever, and I love her post every day of finding the beauty and awesomeness of everything around her.
Yeah.
And if we did that, not just for the holidays, but all year round, I mean, what a different world it becomes.
Well, and, unfortunately, people would probably get numb to it, blind to it. And it's like, oh, you're still doing that? Oh, well, I don't have time to keep up with that. I've got my own life.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but those kind of things are great because they help us to start really looking around us at other people and what's going on around us. Not that we should give up what looking at ourselves, or lose looking at ourselves in exchange for looking at what's going on around us. But if we remember that everybody around us is a reflection of ourself in some way, and we start seeing the divine that's in ourselves and everybody else, right?
No matter what.
No matter what
it looks like, no matter what it smells like, no matter what you think about it.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, this is a great, tonight's Christmas Eve, and I know not everybody celebrates Christmas. I mean, Yule was last Friday. We're going through all of even the pagan, the Wiccan, the alternative holidays. Hanukkah was a couple weeks ago.
Right.
Just this.
Well, and even with the solstice.
Yeah, the solstice. And, to me, how I looked at it was, well, from solstice, see, I like the solstice. I like the feeling of solstice so much in terms of our physical.
I like holidays, I don't even like holidays. I like celebrations tied to nature.
Well, and the celebration of the solstice is it's the darkest, the shortest day, the day of the year where the light is shortest and the dark is longest.
Right.
And it's from there, I mean, that is in our biorhythms, that's where the earth, not just for us, but in the earth, right? Everything's at its most dormant state.
Right. And it's the beginning of a shift in another direction.
Yes. And it's it's a turning point.
Right.
Of restoring and rebuilding and regrowing.
See, and that resonates so much more than me cutting down a tree, bringing it in my house.
Well, I have a tree in my house, so I'm pretty happy with it, though.
No. I'm talking about the whole Christmas celebration. And it's, I don't know. It just, And I'm sure that it's how
Well,
I've chosen to
the
view it.
Christmas tree is actually a pagan / Wiccan thing.
Well, it's to appease the spirits. Absolutely. No, I'm saying I think it's how I've chosen to understand the tradition.
Yeah.
And that there are other interpretations.
Right. Right. And yeah, so to me, the representations are much more, to me, that makes much more of a interrelated connection across all belief systems, right? Because we're all in that physical, right here, we're in this physical representation of what that is, right?
Right.
And so our cycles, our biorhythms are all based on how we rotate around the sun.
Right.
And
within the solar system.
Within the solar system, yeah.
And the solar system within the multiverse.
Right. And that's part of what we talk about with all this stuff is these shifts that we're doing are much bigger, like, like what the photon belt thing that I talked about in my podcast the other week, like that we're actually in a new phase within our within our galaxy right now. Our solar system is in a new phase within our galaxy that naturally allows us to be less dense, more connected, more fluid and in remembrance in a very physically supportive way. So, that's sort of what 2012 was about. I think we were coming into it in 2012. I can't remember the exact period of time. So if you think about that from a much bigger perspective, and those kind of cycles, well, yeah, that's what I resonate with more.
Yes, me too.
And
as again, like we were talking about my HOA coming by and taking pictures of my unmown, unraked lawn, gave me the opportunity yesterday to do some of that. I had to adjust my motivation from the perspective of doing it for myself and to reconnect to that versus a sense of obligation. But, I also tried to be mindful of the animals that need to seek shelter. And that to me is so much more, that resonates so much more to me than feeling obligated to buy gifts or, decorate with false greenery or things like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's, we talked about that too. That's very 3D, the obsession with things like, oh, my grass has to, your grass has to be under this height for it to look okay.
Well, and you have to apply these horrible chemicals to your lawn because you agreed to have weed control.
Oh, and that's going on a lot of fights in a lot of neighborhoods right now because.
And I'm just like, I don't believe in poisoning my lawn just so you feel better.
Yeah.
And the rabbits eat the thistle.
Yeah. Well,
like, why do I need to? You can't make me poison the rabbits.
And the deer.
Well, we don't have deer here. We have bobcats.
Well, we have deer here. So.
And I leave water out for the bobcat. I leave water out for the rabbits so they don't end up in my pool.
Yeah, so I mean, it is part of, like, I think sometimes those expectations that they actually disconnect us more.
Exactly, because your motivation just totally shifts.
Yeah, and that's why it feels a little empty because we're in such a habit, and that's how we have because here. Okay, so we go back to this whole connection through lack, right?
Right.
So many people that's what they do. They talk about problems all the time. They talk about the problems in their neighborhood. They talk about, I can't believe that the HOA is doing this, but they're not doing that. I can't believe that, or these people do it they were supposed to do healthy spraying and they're not people or they do even worse. Oh my God, did you see so-and-so at that house's yard? Have you seen what they did? Oh my God. And why we need to have things like an HOA is right there, a judgment, right?
Right.
because really that's what they turn into, is like an enforcing agency for, how to make sure your house looks like everybody else's on the block.
I know.
And why do we want to be the same? It's so funny. I laugh because, like I said, I'm so glad my husband and I purposely, when we bought our house 22 years ago, we purposely bought a house that did not have an HOA. We purposely did it because I was like, I am not going to have somebody tell me what I can do, like what color I can paint my house. And there's no judgment for anybody who chooses that. That's fine. But the thing is, things get like over the top crazy. Like, you're right. I know Texas, as North Carolina, has been deluged with rain this year.
Right. Right.
So because you could not get out to mow your lawn because you did not think it was so desperately important, so you had to mow your lawn while it was raining in galoshes.
Right. Like the lawn services do. Or, it rains when I'm in town, and then I travel, and then I come back and it's raining again. And it's like, not being able to mow your lawn one weekend because you're out of town turns into 3 weeks because it rains on either end. And it's like, there's no common sense in the whole thing.
Right. And it takes away, number one, it does take away our authenticity because it makes us want to be all the same. There's that.
Right.
Because I remember there's a guy here locally, which I thought was hysterical. It was on the news years ago, that he was so done with, he got fined and his hand slapped because he was painting his house the color that was not on the palette. Right.
Oh, right. Oh yeah. Oh, I know.
So he actually got the palette and he painted every shingle of his siding a different color on the palette. What could they say? It was all in the palette.
I know that when we had a hailstorm move through our neighborhood, that we received in the mail a list of roofing colors that were acceptable.
Yeah. And you know what? And I understand there are people who have those kind of things, like, okay, that to them, but if you think about it, it's like, why do we need to care about anybody else's house but our own, right? Why do we need to care about anybody else's life or their journey but our own? We don't. And I'm not saying that we don't care. I'm saying if we start with loving ourselves, and yes, okay, I mean, we were talking about Andrea and her paying it forward. But here's the thing. When you come from a place of love, that's very different than coming through a place of judgment. Right?
Right.
And that's sort of why I really like Andrea's thing, because she has something new. The more that she seems to go with this program that she's been working on, the more things seem to be synchronistic. One day she was into something and then she meets this lady who was just sitting there and who has this life that she's like, oh, because she's retired and she eats lunch at this place 2-3 times a week. And, she seems so relaxed and it's the holidays and she's like, I do money for the kids and the grandkids and I'm done. So I don't have to worry about anything. And it's and so I love that story. And so she's got these stories for people because she's paying attention, right? And we're focusing on love and coming from the heart. And then it's well, it's not that she has to, but then the more she listens from love, the more she hears the guidance of talk to this person.
Right.
Or talk to this person. I just love, and we do, and here's the funniest thing. When I say, start in your own home, start in your own house, in your own body, in your own consciousness. And that is the most important priority for us, is to get ourselves to a place of unconditional self-love. It becomes one of the most selfless things for us to do, because then we are naturally a love bug. Because then when we're okay with where we are, then we want to connect more with other people. Then we connect, not only do we want to connect more, we connect more at an authentic level, which is so much different.
It really is. It really is. And you've got to, it's almost like the pendulum has to swing to get to that place, because you can go seeking other people for them to fulfill you. And then you have to come back to yourself to be able to get it to come to that place of selfless reaching out instead of needy reaching out.
Right. Well, and I think that word self-full, right? Which Brandy, was it Brandy that had that word, self-full?
Yes, I believe it
love
was.
That. Yeah. Another person that we met. So thank you, Brandy. but it's the self-full word I think is great, because when we're self-full, that means we are full. Like we are full. And like when I hear that word, I just loved it because it makes me think of the cup runneth over, right?
Right. Right.
And the self-full comes from I nourish and love myself so much that my cup is always full and running over, and I can share it openly and freely and authentically with others.
Without any, any deficit to myself.
Yeah.
So many share and give from a place of not even having enough for themselves.
Yes.
Which I don't think is very purposeful.
Yeah. I mean, well, and it's just, it's such these again are such deeply ingrained habits of what we were brought up being told.
Right.
When we are living in this place of lack and separation, from in duality like this, and which is what we've done in such density here, right? So now it's a matter of reassess everything. That's what I tell people all the time. Reassess everything you do and look at your motivation for doing it.
Right.
Why do I do this way?
Yep.
Why do I do this? If it doesn't feel good, look at why it doesn't feel good. Does it feel good because there's something underneath for you to clear and resolve within yourself, and then it will feel good? Or are you doing it because you believe that you're in lack of how good of a person you are, and you need to do it so that somebody else thinks that you're a good person?
Right.
That's much different motivation.
Really is.
And then if you're just doing it because you want to do it, that's the key to get there. I'm doing it because it feels good, because I feel good about myself, and I just want to share my love with everybody. Not, I want them to think I'm a good person. I want them to
feel good.
Yeah. Because or also, I don't want to make them feel good so that they feel good about me, right? Because I don't care what they feel about me. The thing is, I just want to share. I just want to share love, right?
Right.
So that comes down to that authenticity, and how authentic we can be, and how conscious that we are to be of everything we do. That's part of this whole journey of consciousness and self-actualization, getting back to what you're talking about. Because it's funny when you put that line out there, it's really a powder keg. The line about, when people have their basic needs met, right?
Right.
Because the thing is, need in itself is ego-based, which is all part of the illusion of duality and separation and exclusion.
Right.
So it's like, it's really when we get to a place of having our basic existence. How would we even word that? Like, how getting to a place of supported existence. Ooh, that feels good. I like that word, supported existence.
Right.
When you trust and love yourself enough, I'm going to write that down. When you trust and love yourself enough that you can trust that your higher self in the universe is going to support you no matter what, right? Meaning you'll always have shelter. Because that's the thing. If you put it out there and let the universe support you, or your higher self, and you trust that it's always going to be the best, right?
Right.
You will always have enough food. You will always have enough shelter. You will always have enough clothes. You will always have enough. And then some.
Yep.
Because that's when you do it from authenticity and not from obligation or expectation, or what it's supposed to look like, or what kind of house I'm supposed to live in, or how tall my grass is supposed to be.
Right.
Right. Or what kind of clothes I'm supposed to wear. And it's getting to that place of and that's really interesting too, because to me it's almost like that, like lineup, the way you're explaining it is very backwards, because to me it
really is. And they portray it as a pyramid with the self-actualization, the smallest piece at the very top, and it's like I see it flipped. Or, I can't even come up with the mental picture of it, because it's almost like a spiral moving forward. And that, the more you come to the self-actualization, then those other basic needs just automatically get met, and you just keep continuing to move it forward, or up, or out, or, whatever adjective you want to put on it. But it's all interrelated, that everything feeds, but the basis has to be that self-love.
Yes. For
it to be self-perpetual.
Well, for it to be not even a thought.
Well, and if it comes, the way I interpret it is, it's the difference between heart base and ego base. Because with ego base, it keeps you in a closed circle, going around and around and around, almost like chasing your tail.
Yeah.
But in the heart base, it's like everything comes from there, and it's a further expanding, always expanding, just like the universe. Oh, that feels much better.
Yeah.
It's like just like we really are that part of the universe, the always expanding versus stagnant, staying still, compact, tight, chasing your tail. Repetitive. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Stagnant. The other thing that many people don't realize is, if you look at the words that I don't know, I'm being guided to talk about this, so it's related. So when we talk about the words that we use, right? When we say, I need this, right? We tell the universe, I am in need of this, right?
I am coming from a place of lack. Right.
So I don't have it. So then the universe shows you even more why you don't have it.
Right.
Because you're saying that you don't have it, so you're creating it. When we get to a place, I'm trying to keep up with it because the understanding is just like flowing in like so big. I'm trying to go back to what I saw like 10
seconds. Yeah, something you said just really opened the door.
When we start to say, oh crap, I can't remember. Yeah, I know, I could feel that shift, and now I can't even think of words to go with it. So you were talking about that. Oh, the ego cycle. And if we say in these things like, I have to do this, I need to do this.
Right.
Right. You are going to perpetuate the need to continue doing it.
Right. It's like when you say, well, I'm trying to not do blah, blah, blah. Well, all you're ever going to be doing is trying.
Right. And it's a very small tweak, but if you think about it, you can see that energy.
Right.
Saying, I am doing it, or I'm not doing it.
Or I love doing it.
Or I love doing it, right. Or I'm doing something else. Actually, not even I'm not doing it, because not doesn't even register in terms of the universe. So we can say, I am just doing this.
Right.
And that's how it is created, that's where I was going to. Okay. So, and the thing is, the more we say things like, I need to do this, and we busy our minds, we busy ourselves up with, I've got to get this done. I've got to get this done. It's like all of these needs, right, just get bigger and bigger.
Right.
And then what happens is, when we say, you know what, I am taking my time to focus on this. I am doing this, right? Then all of the other stuff, that's all this chatter and all these layers of why you would need to do something, go away, which is where that space comes from, right?
Right.
And then it's just saying, well, I'm doing this. Well, then that's how the universe, the multiverse aligns in our creation is, well, that's what I'm doing. And if I am focusing my time on self-love and self-nourishment and the cup runneth over and feeling good and sharing myself feeling good, then everything and everyone that I encounter will be another reflection of that.
Right.
Which is what I think, going back to what Andrea's doing, which is what I think is beautiful about that, because it seems like the longer she goes, the more sort of beautiful situations just keep on popping up. And it's like, because the more beauty we see, the more beauty we see.
Well, the more powerful the more impact her gifts are having.
Yeah.
And changing people's lives.
Yeah. And so, and that comes from just a place of love. And even if we start sometimes in a place of like maybe forcing ourselves into it, like sometimes we do, because like, oh, well, I'm going to do this to sort of, but sometimes we need to do that to get out of the rut. Sometimes we say, all right, I'm going to do this to get myself into this different habit, right? Which is what, when we talk about in the Trinity 1 class about that, yes, there's a lot of basic stuff, but there's also embedded in it a lot of activities and exercises that align thought, word, and deed to support the existence of unconditional love, unconditional self-love, right?
Right, and which leads to the self-actualization.
Yes. And that's above, to me, way above all the other stuff, because as we become more in that place of love, as I have developed and continued to develop in my remembrance, the less any of that stuff makes much of a difference to me. And if it does, it's a blip on the radar, and I'm just like, okay, it'll change. It'll shift tomorrow or next week. And I'm still going to go on unless I'm guided to not go on. Because I trust my guidance and myself from a place of love, regardless of what other people tell me, what commercials tell me, what society tells me.
What the HOA tells me.
What the HOA doesn't tell me, because I don't have an HOA. But we've had some pretty good contests with a couple of our neighbors sometimes, especially this year, because us too in North Carolina have had a ton of water. So there have been, and it seemed like every weekend this summer it was like raining practically. So it was very rare that we had a weekend where I was like, oh, we'd have to go 3 weeks sometimes and have the dandelion field outside.
Right.
Oh, so funny. But anyhow, so the point is that it's so important to focus on that, to me, like in talking about the self-actualization, because it has become a self-actualization, self-realization, ascension, enlightenment. These have all become catchphrases, and everybody's really, if you ask 10 people like what that is, nobody's going to have the same answer again, right?
Right.
But to me, it's when you get to that place of the self-actualization is, I am divine and I create my reality, and I trust that 100% from a place of love and unity. That's self-actualization, because everything then falls into place and all of that creation just becomes secondary.
Right. My favorite part about the definition I've come up with the self-actualization is the achievement of one's full potential. Mm-hmm. And then you add in through the creativity, independence, and spontaneity, and just how to be in the world. And I mean, to me, that's the perfect package.
Well, and spontaneity comes from trust.
Right. And the creativity is that, to me, that's why we're all here. Mm-hmm. And if you channel that creativity into obsession with making money, or you channel that creativity into making art, or you channel that creativity into raising children, everyone has their own
lawyer.
Right. Or, building houses, building skyscrapers.
Or being a politician, being like if we allowed all that to infiltrate all of it,
right,
how much it would change. So maybe that's what we do for Christmas, for the holidays, for whatever, for this particular week, is giving ourselves the gift of
Self-actualization.
self-actualization.
Well, and the remembering that you already have everything.
Yeah, there's nothing to attain.
That there's nothing that you need to go get. There's nothing you need to accomplish to achieve this. You have it all already.
Yep. Which, you know, is the basis of the understandings in Trinity and stuff too.
Right.
But it's living it.
Right. Allowing yourself to live it.
Oh, that feels really good.
Yeah, that feels like I could do that all day.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go and do that, shall we? That felt really nice.
Something cleared out of my throat. That was a nice Christmas present. Early Christmas present.
Yes, it was. It was beautiful. I kept on hearing the song Christmas bells are ringing in my head. I'm like, stop. But okay, fine. Then just don't distract me.
Right.
It felt really good. Yeah, I just saw a bunch of different things. It was just a matter of shifting, which things that are right under our nose that we didn't even see,
Right.
Turn my
And allowing that expansion, allowing the space for that expansion.
Yeah, that felt really nice.
Yeah, that felt, we talked about earlier about how when you clear out all the stuff, it leaves that perceived emptiness. That's that space for expansion, the universe expansion.
Yep. I'm writing this down so I don't forget it, because I'll forget it 5 minutes later. Alrighty. Well, happy holidays to everyone. We will be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Although, well, this gets uploaded, so.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what this gift brings for the.
Yes. Enjoy your week. And stay authentic. Stay in love.
Right.
And just be observant to everything you do, and shift your motivation to be from there. All right. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Evagnoni.
And we'll see you next time on Ascended World.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.